All right. Hey, welcome back. I wanted to talk about Hillary Clinton. She's trying to get the Democratic nomination and run for president in this coming election in November 2016. She's running against, or she's trying to get the nomination, and Bernie Sanders is the other Democratic nominee. So we had two people in that side of the race, and then on the Republican side, it's still a three-headed race primarily between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. But Marco Rubio won the DC Republican primary, so interesting. So I kind of wanted to talk about Hillary Clinton. And again, she's kind of been a polarizing figure, not just within the Democratic Party, but on the Republican side. And there are opposing views, good and bad, concerning her. If you want to speak about her history, and you can go back to her being a civil rights lawyer, you can talk about her time in politics, you can talk about her time as a senator, you can talk about her time as first lady, secretary of state. So there is a pedigree, there's a resume there in place, and it does speak to the capacity to to run for president and to be president and be a woman president, a female president, our first woman president. And there are people on that are attacking her, especially over Benghazi. Typically, people that serve in the military and have a better understanding of the Benghazi reports and what happened with that attack, and how the Republicans have used that to allude that the White House has been misleading and has not provided all of the information, and as an attack on her character. She's been the victim of, I'll say, gender bias reporting. So she's experienced a bias because she's a woman, in which she's been reported on, and the way that things have been reported as they in respects to Hillary Clinton. You may have some people that feel that, yeah, she could apologize now and speak to, supporting a bill, three strikes, the three strikes law, and the supporting that bill, and how that just led to a culture of mass incarceration where, even the nonviolent offenders, and it could be, people that haven't done anything heinous in the eyes of the law or in the eyes of the public opinion, but because of the language in the bill and in the law as it was written, you know, we've just seen an exponential growth and the number of people being incarcerated for nonviolent crimes as well. So, there's definitely people that are speaking on that argument, and there are people on the other side that are defending her, saying, well, she had the hindsight to look back and see that that wasn't the best decision, and she's speaking on it now. This is kind of what I want to talk about, and this is just, things I've been kicking around in my mind, in my head, and I appreciate that we have Hillary Clinton to represent women. I don't appreciate that we don't have more women being represented on the Democratic side and the Republican side. Granted, Sarah Palin, that experiment by the RNC, it didn't pan out. There were mistakes made, and this is just someone. Of course, I voted Democratic, but just observing and looking at it, and having the benefit of hindsight, because there's always 2020. We can look back clearly, and just looking at what they did. The money that they spent on wardrobe, and the money that they spent on an aesthetic, rather than vetting the individual properly to understand who she was, what her policy was, her mindset was. We're getting to a point, I would hope we're getting to a point where a woman can speak and express herself and present her platform and present her ideology, what she believes and what she thinks, without the need for an aid, without the need of a visual aid, or without the need of visual aids. And when I say visual aids, I mean that she does not need to rely on her aesthetic, and she should not have to rely on her exterior appearance to convey something that she wants to present. So I'm thinking about the mistakes that were made by the Republican Party when they had Sarah Palin as a vice presidential nominee. And I'm thinking about how now it's 2016. We have Hillary Clinton. We've had a couple of women Secretary of States. Not just Hillary Clinton. We had Condoleezza Rice. She did a great job as being a Secretary of State. You look at, even though there's still a glass ceiling, there have been advancements by women in the corporate world to ascend to higher positions and higher levels of management and involvement. We see it every day in the government. We see it where you have, female trainers. We're starting to see female referees and female officials, like in basketball and in male sports. We're starting to see where it's not just a cute little slogan or a cute motto to say equal pay for equal work, or, equality. um, so why am I saying all of that? Why am I bringing those things up? Why am I not on the Hillary Clinton bandwagon? Why am I not just say, okay, hey, we forgot Hillary. She needs to be the next president. Why am I not excited? Why am I thinking about other women? Or why do I have a desire to see other women represented and involved in this process? And I think I'll tell you why. In 2008, and we had President Barack Obama. Well, Barack Obama at that time, before he was elected, and he was running and he was trying to get the nomination, there was a sense and a need to see a person of color, a man of color, have the opportunity to be nominated and have the opportunity to be elected. There was just a thirst and a hunger for many people, not just minorities, not just people that are part of an ethnic group that identify as African American, Asian American, Hispanic, Latino. It was a need for people to see that a man of color could participate in the election process and win, and he did. So campaign on a campaign of change, trying to change the culture in Capitol Hill politics. We're not going to speak on that. I'll do another video another time to speak about, in retrospect, President Obama's presidency. But I'm saying that I feel we're 2016, 8 years later, and we have the same need. We have the need, but it's different. There's a need to see a woman. There's a need to see a woman lead. Don't get me wrong, you're going to have old school ways of thinking and you're going to have old school mentalities that are going to say, hey, a woman shouldn't be in charge, or a woman shouldn't this, or a woman's place. And again, it's an old way of thinking. It's an antiquated way of thinking. Even now, some of the politicians, they still have that archaic sense of a woman's place and what a woman's place is. I would tell you what a woman's place is. It's just like any other man's place in this country. They're here. A woman is here. A man is here. People are here. So I'm thinking about the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. I'm thinking about the Senate, the House of Representatives, and I'm thinking about, other countries around the world. Germany has had a female chancellor. England, Great Britain. One of their best prime ministers was Margaret Thatcher. Again, polarizing woman. Some people have an opinion about her, good or bad. But as far as influence and as far as the ability and the capability to be a head of state, she was able to do so. So I don't think that my thoughts or my questions or my being undecided isn't an indictment on Hillary Clinton. It isn't that I'm not with Hillary Clinton or I can't support her. By default, I'm going to have to support her because she's the only woman in this race. I would like to see more diversity. And again, I talked about diversity, tolerance, and I know that sometimes they become blanket terms, they become umbrella terms. It's easy to sit back and say Hillary Clinton is evil. It's easy to sit back and say, well, she was part of the three strikes, legislature. She supported it. So blah, blah, blah. Or it's easy to say, well, Hillary Clinton, was Secretary of State during 2012, during the Benghazi attacks, and there's a reason why we don't trust her, we don't stand with her. Just like there's a reason why people may not want to stand with Bernie Sanders, and there's a reason why people don't want to support Trump, and they don't want to support Cruz. And then there are people that do support all of those people. So I want to speak on why we do not see more women represented. There's still more progress that needs to be made. The glass ceiling has a little bit of a crack. It's been punched a little bit. It's been hit a little bit. It's still intact. It needs to be shattered and eradicated. One of the people that I admire, and I admire a female athlete, a few of them. I admire Serena Williams because of just her commitment to excellence, just being a champion, wanting to win, never wanting to get up, just wanting to just be the best. But I like her sister, Venus Williams, and I respect her because she was a champion too. She was a winner as well. But she spoke on women's issues and equality issues in the sport of tennis. A few years prior to a few years ago in Wimbledon, one of the prestigious Grand Slam out of all of the four slams, Wimbledon is the most prestigious, and the women were not getting equal prize money. So Venus Williams spoke out about that and said, "Hey, I feel that the women should get the same amount of money that the men get." You see that where women have had to speak up, they're still getting 78, 79 cents on the dollar to what a man would make to the dollar. So there's still a chance and opportunity for women to be fully represented, properly represented, because you got to think about this, and I kind of want to go here. Let's just break it down on like, okay, I guess you would call, I guess working class, you know, I'm lower working class, just hovering above poverty. I work, I make money. I had my dad in my life for, here and there. He paid child support. I have a relationship with him now. But I was primarily raised by my mother and my grandmother. A lot of people fall into a single parent home. Not to say everybody, but there are a lot of people that have had a single parent, whether it's a man or a woman. There are a lot of people that have lived in a traditional two-parent home. So the beauty and the complexity that presents itself in the American family, the fabric of American family, the fabric of America is the complexity of there's so many different permutations of everything, people, families, everything. So I can identify with being raised by a woman, my grandmother and my mother. I can identify with seeing a woman in a leadership position. I can identify with having female principals, female teachers, female supervisors, female bosses, female district managers. And in many cases, working with women and working with the women that I've observed, they were far more thorough than a lot of the men, than a lot of guys that I've seen or that I've observed or that I've worked with, that I've watched. So again, and this is about what you believe, how you were brought up, your value system, what's been instilled in you, within you. Um, if you've been brought up to believe that a woman has a place and that that place is exclusive to certain places in the home and things of that nature, I'm not going to knock how you were brought up and what you were presented with and what was instilled with you. I would just like to challenge it or question it or have you just think about it differently. It's okay for a woman to raise a child. It's been okay for women to like be supervisors and managers and shift leaders and things like that. Society hasn't collapsed. The economy hasn't collapsed because there are more women in leadership positions. The economy hasn't suffered because more women are seeking higher education and more women lead and they're in leadership positions. I've had several district managers because I've worked just about everywhere. So I worked in many permutations of customer service, retail, different chains, brands, conglomerates, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of the women who were in these higher levels, they were thorough. And they had to be because they were given the opportunity, they had to earn it. So they had to prove that they could sustain that and build upon that. Just like a lot of people, a lot of African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, Asian Americans, you know, once we get the opportunity, we feel that we have to execute and we have to excel at it because it's not something that many people think we can do. So when you're fighting systemic racism, when you're fighting prejudice, when you're fighting bias, when you're dealing with those things and when you're fighting those things, you create a standard. So I'm looking at Hillary Clinton